We're live.
Yay! All right, well, welcome back. It is Friday evening, and we are doing book chats at Mostly Books. I'm Jody.
I'm Jen.
And tonight we are doing The Silence of Bones by June Hur. Do you want to give a synopsis?
Sure. Sol is an indentured servant to the police bureau in the capital Hanyang, and a noblewoman is murdered. And we are investigating her case, and there's just more secrets, and it becomes deeper and darker and more twisted the further Sol investigates. And
it was quite the unraveling.
Yeah, it's definitely you definitely go down a bit down the rabbit hole with her and this investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
murder mystery in historical Joseon, Korea, so around 1800.
Yeah, I don't think I've read anything that's set in Korea, so this was really fun for me in that sense.
Yeah, and when we do historical, we usually do Victorian stuff, so later 1800s.
Yep.
So this was like a nice switch in time period and setting.
Oh, absolutely. Before we go further, do we want to talk about the cover?
Do we want to talk about that no one's filming us, so please comment. We will see your comments at the end, though. And we'll respond then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we will want to know what you think, because really, I want to know what everyone thinks about the cover. So there's the two faces, as you can see. And you can see the background face. We are undecided if the first face is our main character, Sol, and the second face is her long-lost brother, which is kind of, I think, where we're settling on this.
Yeah, because she carries a sketch of her brother around with her and is like showing it to people, but it's also super faded, so everyone who sees it is like, I don't
faded
know.
And 10 years old.
Yeah, even she doesn't really remember anymore. She's like, this is all I have of him, and even it's like a faint memory now.
Yeah, so tell us what you think about the cover. We like the cover.
We do.
We just want to know who the faces are.
Also, it matches my nails, which was not like intentional. It wasn't intentional, but it just kind of happened.
Well done.
What are you gonna do in quarantine?
Right. All right. Well, moving into the actual story. First off, what was your first impression of Sol?
I really liked her because she felt very like emotional and like in predictably teenage ways because she is 16.
Yes.
So like I just really enjoyed how emotionally invested she got into the investigation, but also into friends she made, and it was all, you kind of go on this journey with her, and you have to learn. She learns a lot about herself and how she like reacts to people, or like who she can and can't trust, which all felt very like believable to like a teenager like figuring out their place in the world.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I also was impressed at how she was a very logical thinker, and sometimes at 16 that's not a skill you necessarily have. So I was very impressed at her detective skills and her like determination.
Yeah.
Considering I felt like she had no guidance. I mean, she's the police's like servant more or less, but they don't really, aside from telling her to sweep, have her doing a lot.
There is something interesting that the Damos are like teenage girls, and they're the only ones who can like touch like a female murder victim or search through a woman's things, because of like the gender dynamics of this era, which I thought was really interesting because then they get this like perspective that the male police officers and inspectors don't get.
Yeah, I actually, now that you've mentioned that, I did forget about that part was very interesting. And she was a scrappy thing, considering she alone was moving dead bodies around, like, up onto, like, gurneys and all over.
They do say she's tall and, like, strong.
Tall, strong, and a little, like, lengthy, I guess.
Yeah, lanky. Yeah, scrappy's a good word for her.
I do remember thinking in the beginning, like, I don't know if I could lift a whole person. And maneuver them into the place they wanted her to move from to.
Yeah. It's just, she's really interesting. I liked her.
I like Sol too. Like I said, she was a logical thinker. She was ambitious and go-getter. Like, I don't know if somebody didn't tell me, you should be inquiring more about this murder, if I would have really done that.
Yeah, it gets her in trouble sometimes.
Yeah, definitely got her in trouble.
But she she just kind of keeps moving and keeps going.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely, you know, wanted to impress the inspector. She really valued his opinion of her because he valued her opinion, which was a very big thing. She wanted to feel significant. And so, shoot, I was headed somewhere else with that conversation.
She does really look up to him, and like,
yeah,
he's a good inspector, and then she has this like detective instinct in her. So, yeah,
they worked well together in the beginning. I'm gonna go with in the beginning. Things took a little turn though, pretty quickly.
Very quickly.
Do you want to? Well, let's just say there are going to be spoilers.
There are going to be spoilers.
This is not a huge spoiler, but I would like to talk about the scene where it turned sour very quickly.
Yeah.
Between her and the inspector, they went into the mountains in search of a missing servant who was one of the last known people to have seen the murdered noblewoman.
Yeah. So Lady O is the murder victim. This is her like her maid, basically.
Yeah. So they go in search of her because she's ran off, and they encounter a tiger. And for some reason, nobody else on the police force thinks, I'm going to shoot the tiger, because they're kind of cowardly.
Keon's a coward.
He was a coward.
Yeah.
He had it already, but couldn't do it.
His hands are shaking. He can't do this.
Soul does it, and saves the inspector, but consequently is like, her horse is scared off into the night, and she ends up rather injured.
Yeah, she dislocates her shoulder. Is that when she dislocates her shoulder the first time?
No, that's later.
Okay.
Oh, the first time, maybe. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so she shoots the tiger. The tiger's not dead, and it chases her off into the woods, and her horse, like, throws her, and so she gets stuck in the woods and knocked out, and so she has to, like, make her way back on her own. Don't they think she's dead?
They think she's dead and left her there. Yeah.
Well, they looked for her, but they couldn't.
They were going to go back, yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, so things are still fine here. He actually is really appreciative and gives her a token and is like, oh, whatever your greatest heart's desire is, I will try to get that for you, kind of thing. I owe you one because you saved my life.
Yeah, she wants to go home.
Which he wants to do for her. But then when they go back into the woods, what were they? They're going to visit the Buddhist temple, right?
Yeah. So they go to they investigate a little further. Should I tell why they go to this temple?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so they find out the murder victim has an illegitimate child that she had at this temple and then came back to the capital. So they go there to find this kid and see if maybe the dad showed up.
Right, so we can identify the dad.
And then they go, someone takes their horses while they're talking in the temple, and so they follow footprints that only Inspector Han can see.
I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah,
no one else can see
okay.
the horse's tracks.
So they got off into the forest, and then they get jumped by bandits. He tells Soul, like, stay here, and then takes his manservant, Rion, with him.
I liked him.
Yeah. I did like him. I was wondering if I should be suspicious of him or not, but he's okay.
He was okay.
So Soul doesn't stay put. She goes and follows and steps on a twig, which alerts the bandits. And then it becomes a bit of a scuffle, and she kind of is lost from his good graces. He
made a point of being like, because they had her at knife point, and he was like, that's fine.
Oh, yeah. And, yeah.
And that was kind of when it became like, oh, you really don't care about me. You just care about this case. So Soul ends up saving herself.
To be fair, he did pin his entire career on this case.
Yes, but not at that point.
Oh, right, not at that point, yeah.
I mean, I always kind of thought we'd come back to this moment and he would have a good reason, like, oh, I was going to do this and save you.
He's also her elder.
Yeah.
So, like, she should have listened to him. And, like, based on, like, these, like, cultural standards that they're in. So that was a big deal.
That's true.
Like, in rank and age, he's older than her.
But after this point, she really kind of was like, oh, I'm expendable. And it went kind of south for the two of them at that stage. Both were pretty upset at each other.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. I don't know. I really thought we'd come back to that moment and have better resolution between the two of them. But we really never do. And I don't know what I wanted, but I wanted some acknowledgement of that moment.
Yeah.
I guess maybe I just wanted him to acknowledge that she wasn't expendable to him. But we didn't. Okay, so what else do we want to continue before we start really spoiling the end?
Did you like how the mystery played out? Did you guess the killer?
I did not guess the killer.
Me neither.
At all. Well, okay. I guessed it would be related to the family that it's related to. But I did not see the twist coming.
Yeah, I didn't either. Like, I was pretty sure I was right about a different unrelated thing to who the murderer was. And I was sure, like, who it wasn't. So, but
I was sure who it wasn't.
Yeah,
yes.
but I didn't, after that I was like, I don't know who this could be.
Yeah. I know, because she would keep going through the list of who she thought it was, and it was like, but that person, it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, or there's just, like, things didn't add up, or, like, Lady O is found dead with her throat slashed and her nose cut off.
Oh, her nose. We should talk about that, too.
And they didn't address the nose
Right?
bit for so long. They didn't address it for so long, and I was like, wait, why? Yeah.
I know. I thought that should have been a little bit more bewildering or important to them. And it seemed very like, oh yeah, the nose was cut off. Let's just keep going. Let's keep looking. I don't know. We never really talked about it until the very end.
Yeah. Should we mention, like, the Catholicism?
Yes, I was thinking we should as well. I thought that was interesting. At this time, Catholicism was slowly starting to move in from the south of Korea, I guess, the Southerners.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that. So they were, her town specifically was really trying to get rid of all the Catholics in the capital. Yeah. I mean, it was, if you or anyone you associate with are Catholic, you're going to be terminated, basically.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And, you know, it was funny because we've now read 2 books back to back with this newer, like, religion, westernized religion coming in and taking over these, you know, older and different cultural religions. It was just very interesting to pair those 2 back to back.
It was. And specifically Catholicism.
Specifically Catholicism, yes.
Yeah.
But this one felt very differently than in The Gods of Jade and Shadow, where it felt like she was very, in that book, I don't really follow this, what the priest is saying.
This one reminded me more of, like, Elizabethan England, when it was, like, Anglicans versus Catholics, and, like, the, like, you have Catholic sympathizers, or you're housing, like, priests in your house, and they're moving around in secret, and there's, like, illegal Bibles and texts.
Yeah,
I didn't. It felt more like that.
Did you get that that's what the illegal books were in the beginning? Like, I didn't realize until much later that that's probably what she was smuggling.
Yeah, like, Bibles are like Book of Hours kind of things.
Yeah.
Or hymnals or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's what they were. I initially just thought they were books that were,
well, because then she had, like, the
text,
cross,
I guess.
she finds, or she sees, like, the cross pendant. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's their Bibles.
I didn't put it together until, like, much later when we find out she's, like, the head of the heretics of, what was?
The heretical virgin troop?
Yes, the heretical virgin troop. She was the leader of.
She's a historical figure.
Oh, that's interesting. I kind of want to learn more about that.
I read, like, the author's note, and it, like, makes...
Shoot, I meant to read that, and I forgot to do that before we came.
Yeah, and there's, like, a lot of interesting history, and there's, like, nonfiction sources given in the author's note, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to read these now.
Right. Did you know a lot about the Catholicism movement? I didn't either. I will also note, I didn't realize how many things culturally they got from China. Like, they talk about the writing, and I had no idea.
Yeah, so I'm learning Korean, by the way. So there's, like, Chinese characters in Korean. So at times when they're talking about okay, spoilers. The magical infant child. That myth, and they're saying, oh, this one's only from Joseon, like the rest are from China. So even there's, like, words in Korean that are pure Korean characters, and they don't have, like, Chinese characters in them. So
yeah, that was whole interesting.
Yeah.
I also really liked learning about the writing and the strokes and all that.
Yeah, Hangul.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting, and I'm kind of wanting to explore that more after reading this.
Yeah, the alphabet's really cool. It, like, works really well. I should have been smarter in how I learned it.
Oh?
I just tried to go trial and error and match sounds to characters rather than, like, looking at one and learning it that way.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not even thought about tackling a whole new language.
But it helped with this one specifically, like, for how to pronounce names. That really helped me.
Yeah, I really wish we had a glossary in this book. I think that's my biggest gripe about this whole book. I wanted a glossary because some of the terms you can make out with the context of the sentence, but some of them, there was a specific one I actually had to ask Jen, and she was like, oh, it's kind of a sound or an oh man.
Yeah, so the characters say, like, I go. Like, I was like, oh man, or like, geez, or, yeah.
And I could not figure out, because there was one point I was like, maybe they're like, meaning like, no, don't worry about that. But then when I tried it in the next one, it was not going to work in that sentence.
Yeah.
So that would have been helpful to have known.
I wanted, like, a glossary for, like, the clothing that they were wearing. Because she, like, mentions, like, when she's getting dressed in the morning. Like, she puts this on and that on and all that. And I was like, oh, what? Like, I want to know, like, what these things are or something. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So a glossary. That's our only thing. Maybe in the paperback there will be a glossary.
Maybe.
Okay. Anything
before we get into super spoilers?
Right.
Now, if we think of something, we're already in spoilers, so it'll be fine.
Okay, so spoilers from here.
Yeah, much bigger spoilers from here.
Okay, do we just want to dive into the end and say, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was going to be Commander Yi?
It wasn't Commander Yi.
No, it wasn't! Thank goodness it wasn't Commander Yi. It was the guy, the counselor's, but not the counselor. He was still, what was his? Shim.
Shim J.
Thank
J.
you.
Doc?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Officer Shim, who we thought was a good guy through most of the book.
I really did. He's, that's how they get you.
Yeah.
You think he's fine until the end. When you find out he's cutting people's noses off.
Commander Yi also did have a twist. Should we talk about Soul's backstory? Because that was also like... Okay. Oh, we're going to talk about Han too. Okay, this is...
Yeah, we're just going to dive right into spoiling everything.
So Soul comes to the capital with like a last wish from her sister, find your brother's gravesite, because he hasn't written home, so they just assume he's dead.
Because he promised he would write home.
He's very not dead.
Very not dead.
Inspector Han is her long-lost brother. Because Soul starts finding coincidences, like, oh, he has a burn on his arm in the same place I saw my brother get injured. That's when I really figured it out.
Well, of course you did, because, like, how often is there going to be that specific burn
yeah,
on
I
a person?
suspected it with the eye color, and then, like, I knew it when he saw the burn, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's you.
I suspected it when he was, like, when he gave her the token. I wanted to give, this token to my little sister, but can't. And I thought, oh, but I felt like that was too obvious. So I kind of kept doing what she did until the burn. Then I was like, well, come on.
Yeah. Where was I going with this? Okay, so Soul's backstory, she come find her dead brother. It turns out her father was a Catholic. So he was executed and the family was exiled instead of murdered because Commander Yi had power and he was their father's best friend. So that's why they only got exiled.
And only for 3 years instead of 10.
And yeah. I don't remember the name of the island, though.
It was mentioned very briefly, and I don't remember either. But it was to an island.
Yes. Their mother commits suicide off the cliff. And then they move on. And then older brother, older sister have a fight. Older brother leaves and comes to the capital. And then eventually Soul is indentured because her and her sister, they turn to servitude because they don't have any other options. So that's how Han gets to the capital, and that's how Soul gets to the capital. Soul is also not her name.
Right.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
It was interesting figuring out their family name, because their family name's Jung, and then she's like, oh, that's the same as my family name, and then she sees a letter with her given name in it, and that's how she kind of starts putting it together.
I know, and she even at that point was still like, but maybe this is a common name.
It is a common name.
And I was just like, okay, he's got the burn, he's got the eyes, he's got the name. What else do you need, dear?
So there's this Catholicism, or the heretical values, like in her backstory and in Han's backstory, and that they are both figuring that out, or she's figuring that out.
She's figuring it out because he is really dedicated to getting rid of Catholicism in Korea
because it ruined his family.
And he, in my opinion, I felt like he was too driven to do this, and then neglected everything else in his life and himself.
That was also kind of like, in this book that, like, the characters that were too worried about honor, like, had the most to lose and suffered the most.
Mm-hmm. And he did.
He falls into that, too, even though he wasn't the murderer.
Yeah. And then he was actually his uncle.
Yes.
Was it? And so he changed his name, too.
Yeah.
The backstory of the family was very twisty.
Yeah, he takes his mother's surname instead of his father's. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Shim.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell the twist about Shim's family?
Okay. Oh, how am I going to do this? So Shim, how am I going to start with Counselor Trey.
Right.
He's like a power player we hear about, we see him, but he's not
and
super
his
big
son was at one point engaged to Lady O, our noble woman who was murdered.
Yep.
So we already have a connection there. So they've kind of been brought in and out of to the investigation because of this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a power player in the southern faction. And that's where the Catholics are. So if the capital passes a measure to root out Catholics, it will ruin his power base. So he's thinking if I help round up the Catholics or round up this, like, priest that no one can find, then I will get in good with the Queen Regent, and therefore she will not destroy my power base. Or she won't ruin me and my family.
I also want to learn more about this queen.
She's also a historical
I
figure,
assume she
so
would be
you can learn
historical.
more about her.
She sounded very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, so he has a illegitimate son, Shim. I don't remember who the mother is.
She was just somebody from his village, I think.
Yeah.
That they fell in love. Why did he leave her? Now I don't remember why they split. Maybe she wasn't
it because he was staying in this village on, like, some kind of, like, royal assignment for a few months, and then he, like, left.
Yes, that's what it was.
He was never supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But then she had the kid.
Yeah. So he leaves. He doesn't acknowledge his illegitimate son because why would he?
Because the guys don't do that, yeah.
Yeah. And then he adopts his nephew as his rightful heir. So that's our young Master Choi, who is
engaged to Lady O.
Who was engaged to Lady O, who then shows up various times throughout the plot, usually drunk.
Yeah, he was kind of a tool.
Yeah, tool's a good word for him. So Shim grows up.
Well, he comes of age at 13.
Comes of age at 13. We hear a few different stories about him. But he tells us, he's like, yeah, I'm an illegitimate son. I got to the position I am because Han saw something in me. That's why I'm so devoted to him. He's like, I'm a good dude.
Yeah. Minus the fact that at 13, his mother, so distraught over him being illegitimate, pushes him into a well. At least this is my theory. I'm saying she pushed him into the well. He climbed out of the well, and then he kills his mother.
Mother was never happy about his birth. Like,
right.
she names, like, the name she gives him
was ugly something.
Yeah, it's like Ugly Omen or Ugly Coming or
yeah,
something.
It was
like
really
that.
not nice.
Yeah, so there was that resentment there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
He grew up in that.
So she had enough and pushed him into a well, but that didn't kill him. So
yeah.
he climbs out and then hangs her, which everyone thinks is double suicide, basically.
Yeah, everyone in the village hears this story of, oh, she killed her son, and then she killed herself.
Yeah.
It's not what happened.
But the big thing is, he then digs up the grave and writes a letter and puts it in the casket.
Or does he, like, bury oh, yeah, because the grave was freshly disturbed. Yeah.
Yeah, because the townspeople finally decided to, bury it way back when.
Yeah.
So he went there recently and put that in there. Like,
is it a murder mystery if you're not digging up someone's grave?
Maybe not. Not when it's like this gothic-y 1800 style.
Yeah, so, and there's this note in there. Why do we see this note? Because Soul, like, is told, follow the trail of shame.
Yeah.
And it leads her to this village, and she talks to a shaman?
Yep, shaman.
Yeah. She talks to a shaman who kind of tells her about the backstory of this town, and Biol, Shim's mother. And then she goes to the grave, and she's like, there's a spade behind this grave. The dirt's disturbed.
The dirt's disturbed, yeah.
It's covered under snow, but, like, she's like, it shouldn't look like this.
But I did enjoy how nobody else noticed it or questioned it. And she was with a couple. Was somebody, the guide?
Yeah, she was just with this, like, old guy from the town.
And he was like, did you?
He's like, I'll take you. I have time.
But that made me laugh.
He's our helpful NPC.
Yeah.
So then she, like, finds this note, and then Shim shows up. And kind of... I like that we didn't get a super long villain monologue like, "Wah ha 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 ha, I did it." Like
he really didn't.
Because she has a lot of it figured out, and he mentions like a few things, and it fills in enough of the holes to be like, yes, we know it's you, but we also don't get this obnoxious monologue.
And that's when we found out he killed his mom. So there were 4 bodies at that point.
Yep.
And then he tells us that he was cutting the noses off to remind himself.
Because he's like, they look too much like humans when they aren't mutilated, so he cuts their noses off to, like,
which was so bizarre.
Like heretics.
Did you find that bizarre? I mean, I guess he was
to
already...
like mutilate the bodies? Not really.
Like his reasoning behind it. I don't know. I mean, he was really messed up.
Well, it kind of reminded me of like Greek and Roman stuff when you don't give a body a proper burial and it gets ravaged by dogs and birds. So like, and it like destroys the sanctity of the burial. So it seemed like cutting their noses off and mutilating them. That also like they're heretics. They don't get a proper burial.
Except that he did that to somebody who still lived, too.
Oh, yeah, he tried to do it to her.
Well, he did it to, the girl that was the servant that took her to the woo. Yep.
Well, she didn't get her nose cut off, did she?
Yeah.
Oh, she did?
Yep.
Oh, right, because there's blood all over her face.
Yep. And they even mentioned, like, oh my gosh, her nose is gone. And she's still alive and has no nose now. Yeah. And then they took her in for questioning, and I was really concerned for her because their questioning at the police place was a little questionable at that time.
Torture. You have to torture servants. Yeah.
That was terrible.
Yeah,
and break them.
Rome was that way.
I mean, they all were at that stage.
Yeah.
Hence that stage. So, yeah, Shin was a bad guy.
Yeah.
And... No, he didn't die. Han made him go to jail for his crimes.
Yeah, because he was like, you've sought honor you've run from shame your whole life. Now face up to your shame, face a public trial. And that would like really condemn it. I thought that was kind of a nice twist though.
I liked that too, actually. I thought that was an appropriate end. Except that I don't know how I feel about the end for Han. How did you feel about that ending?
Like I said earlier, he was so fixated on honor, and that ended up being as destructive to him as it was to Shim.
It was. I mean, yeah, he basically worked himself.
He worked himself to death.
And I didn't really ever feel like he and Sol then had a time to reconnect and to...
Do you feel like she needed him at that point?
I don't know if need is the right word, but I think she still would have wanted to have that reconciliation.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that she had learned a lot from him and learned a lot about herself and is a very capable person, but I think she deserved the reconciliation at the ending, too.
She kind of did get that in, like, the letters that he left her.
There was the letters. I guess maybe it's just me. Maybe I just wanted more.
Like, I would have taken more, too, but I think it was kind of interesting in that it's not our main character that's dying, but one of our big characters who we're even sometimes supposed to root for is the one who's dying. I thought that was interesting. An interesting way to end him and their relationship.
Yeah. Now, I will say, in some ways, I think this opens up a new, like, if she continues this storyline, and I think that makes it easier in some ways, because I think that Sol would become a much more interesting character without being in the shadow of Han.
Yeah.
So there was that. So if she's setting it up for more books, that was probably a good move.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I kind of wanted another book.
So I'll talk about, like, Sol's ending. Han does fulfill her wish to go home. She does get to go back, and she lives with her sister and her sister's husband on, like, a rice farm. Yep. And works a peaceful life in the countryside. Yep. And she finds herself getting bored.
Yep. Suddenly home was not what she thought it was.
Yeah. And it seemed like she didn't want, like, she didn't want to be, like, she wasn't grateful for this. Right. But she also, there were parts of the city she really missed.
Well, and I think that she has bigger ambitions than this little rice farm has for her. I mean, I think that would have been really hard to going from the capital. I mean, that was an intense adventure that she went on to then just babysitting your nephew and working the fields. Yeah. And
then Ryun shows up. Han's manservant shows up and is like, hey, we need an investigative brain back at the capital, but they'll never admit that, so that's why I'm telling you.
Right. Well, she's a girl.
Yeah, I hope she gets to go back, like, not as a Damo, though.
I hope she comes back as not as a Damo as well.
Yeah, like, she can read and write now.
And she was way, way better than,
Kyon.
yeah, Kyon, another tool.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping there's another book.
That would be interesting.
Because I felt like that really set it up nicely, that she was going to
Yeah.
go back to the capital now.
It does, and it's like, you see how she's figured, like, especially from the beginning of the book to the end, you see that she's figured out more of, like, what she wants.
Yeah.
And she's not, like, clinging to, like, I have to find this dead brother, I just want to go home.
She's
found,
finally,
like, where she belongs.
Yeah, and put the past to rest. I
Mm-hmm.
think that she had idolized what she could remember about her home life. And
Especially her brother.
well, even going back home was not what she remembered it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that once she could finally put all those ghosts to rest, she's going to become a really cool inspector.
Yeah, I was proud of her at the end. I'm like, you did so
Yeah,
good. You figured it out.
I would not have done well in her place. I do not have that cutthroat and analytical thinking as well as she does.
Yeah, I had to read some of those passages a few times to figure out, like, how she put it together.
I know, right?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, wait, that's, like, she's really good at the details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Things that I would have forgotten about and what have you. Yeah. So needless to say, a really excellent first book by June Hur. We're very excited for more to come.
Yeah. Historical or otherwise. The
Yeah.
historical was really fun, though.
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was really good. I'd probably read anything else that she wrote.
I enjoyed the language in it, too, just because I'm learning it, and it was fun.
I need a glossary. Please just give me a glossary next time and I'm good to go. A pronunciation guide would be also helpful. But that's just me. Okay. Any parting thoughts?
It reads quick.
I agree. The pace was nice. It was quick.
It was easy. It was, like, easy to read, and that it's easy to, like, sit down, read it, and just get carried along with the story. It starts off really, like, with a bang.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't really ever calm down. I mean, there was always something, like, you'd get a brief moment.
I think it's because it's, like, character driven.
Yeah, it's very character driven.
Character driven, it's, like, very emotional, too.
I mean, it's very character driven, but there's a lot that happens plot-wise, too.
But, like, how Soul, like, navigates through that plot is very, like, she's following, like, her own intuition or emotions.
It was a great female character. Yeah. Didn't need saving at all. She saves herself every time.
Yeah, I really like that, like, there are instances where it seemed like, oh, how's she gonna get out of this? Like, she has a knife to her throat, and she gets out
Oh,
of
man.
that.
I liked that. She bites him and stomps on his foot.
And, like, grabs the blade. Like, that's metal.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that. I mean, she
like,
did, and got nasty
ow.
cut that she paid for a little bit later, but not bad.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
she recovered after 5 days.
recovered, or we just stopped hearing about it in the plot.
Well, I mean, she was just only really, really sick for 5 days, and then she was fine.
Yeah, that too.
All right, so yeah, we recommend this. It was a good read.
It was really good. I'm glad we picked it.
What are we reading next week?
What are we reading next week? We are reading The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil. And it is a mystery. Back to realism and contemporary or Victorian?
I think it's Victorian.
It is Victorian
I feel
London.
like we kind of find one book that leads to another book, and we've just been doing some thematic reading.
We like the 19th century. It's fun times.
So,
Well, Gods of Jade and Shadow was 20th century.
yeah, except that it kind of has similar themes to this one.
Yeah.
So I just feel like we find these weird little themes that just
carry one
over.
thing from book to book,
We
but
really
we don't
do.
know which one it's going to be.
It just randomly happens. But no, this should be good. It's an adult mystery. Set in Victorian London. Right? London?
Yep, Victorian London.
Yep. So it should be interesting. We're excited for it.
Yeah, about a doll maker named Iris. And then a collector enchanted by all things strange and beautiful.
I'm kind of excited. I hope it's creepy.
It has dolls.
I know, right? Creepy.
Also, I just turned to a random page and there's like a song in it.
Oh, see, that'll be fun.
Because there's cantos and it's formatted like poetry. So I feel like it's going to be creepy because it's dolls.
I thought creepy too because it's a doll factory, no less.
Yeah, we kept thinking of like Dollhouse.
We did keep calling it the wrong name. We got it finally.
And then we're like Doll Factory, which is creepier than Dollhouse.
I think it's way creepier, yeah. So definitely can not pre-order, but you can order these from Mostly Books or on our website at mostlybooksaz.com if you would like to read ahead and not have it spoiled. Because we just tend to do that.
We do now because there's like things to talk about.
Well, the end is always important.
Yeah.
You know, things happen.
The end is always important.
That change things in the beginning. So, yeah.
This is
All
good.
right. So we will see you all next week. Have a lovely night.
Bye.